Hello, Dreamcatchers, and welcome to another exciting day in the Writer's Haven. I am your host, Helena, and today I am with Christian nonfiction author Kevin Wayne Johnson to discuss his God Give the Glory book series. The winner of 19 literary and media awards, Kevin is also a pastor, executive coach, teacher, radio broadcaster, book publisher, and a host of other great things that just makes us all very, very proud to know him. Join me in welcoming to the Haven author Kevin Wayne Johnson. Hello, Kevin.
Hello.
Welcome.
Thank you so much for the invitation.
I am so glad that we were able to finally get you here.
I am even more elated.
Well, you know what? You have done so many great things since I met you back in, you're saying 2006. It seems farther
You
back.
said it was earlier.
I thought it was earlier, but
Right.
You have been in this game for a very, very long time.
Right.
And the work that you've been doing towards inspiring people to have a closer relationship with God is just phenomenal. And so I want to talk about some of that. But first I want to start off with your writing journey. And how did you get to being a writer for the Lord?
Well, it started on my job.
Okay.
Now, most people know that I am a career civil servant with the federal government. I recently retired, October 2017, after 34 years of total service.
Wonderful.
So, as a young pup coming through the trenches, I was always writing articles related to my career field, which was procurement, acquisition, contracting. I really, really enjoyed my career, and I enjoyed writing to try to get people to be a little bit more astute and a little bit more aware of the complications in terms of being an acquisition official in the government. Interestingly enough, my articles would always make it into the national magazines. Right? So whether it was 1 page or 5 pages on different topics. And it just so happens that the right people at the right time would see these articles and make a phone call to my boss's boss saying, we want Kevin to come and represent the procurement officials on this topic. And then it dawned on me right around the same time that all of this good stuff was happening, I had a calling on my life in terms of ministry and giving God glory and letting people recognize and acknowledge it's not Kevin, but it's a higher power that's working in Kevin to do these things. So there was a fork in the road, and I ended up doing both. I accepted my calling, and I also continued in my career field. And that's how the book series was birthed, because I wanted to give God the glory just based upon my personal testimony and what I was gleaning from the Bible and what I was hearing from sermons and the faith walk. And all these good things were happening. It wasn't because of me, but it was because of the obedience that was in me. And so these articles continued. I kept writing articles, and I gained visibility. I gained recognition within my career field. I was promoted. I was asked by senior officials in the government to accompany them to Capitol Hill to testify before the House of Representatives. I'm like, wow, this is not just me. There's a higher power.
Yeah.
And right around 2001, so that was 18 years ago, the Give God the Glory series was birthed. Now, it was birthed from just one book. I had no thought that I would be an author of multiple books. Simple message, give God the glory. Subtitle, know God and do the will of God concerning your life. 2 parts, 6 chapters, 189 pages, nonfiction, just to tell the story. And all of these years later, that first book is still the bestseller in the series. And so that's how it all started. And as a result of publishing the books through my own company, and as a result of having to find a distributor to get it into the bookstores and being actively involved in the publishing industry by participating in book signings and book conferences and festivals, about 3 months after the book was actually published and released to the Christian marketplace and the general marketplace, it was picked up for national distribution. So I attended.
Who was the national distributor?
At that time, it was FaithWorks.
Okay.
FaithWorks became STL Distribution. STL Distribution became Send the Light.
Okay.
Right? Same company, but the original owner sold it. Another company picked it up. They kept my titles, and that's how my books ended up in the bookstore and then generating sales across the globe, and giving God the glory. So that's how it all started, right?
Wow.
And I'm still going.
Yeah. So you chose to write a nonfiction series of books, and the different books have different focuses.
Yes.
On that umbrella thought of giving God the glory. Talk more about that, how that works.
Yeah, so the original vision then when the series was birthed, because the first book did well, and the Lord just spoke to me to say, you need to keep going. So being a person that's in the workplace, then it was appropriate for the second book to have the subtitle, Called to be Light in the Workplace. So how can you and I, when we go to work every day, whether it's a corporation, a nonprofit, a church, or even the federal government or the state government, how can our presence, the light that we bring, dispel all of the darkness and all of the dysfunction that's going on in the workplace, right? And so that was the subtitle for book number 2. Book number 1 focuses on relationships with one another, and relationships with our Heavenly Father. Then we transition into the subtitle, The Godly Family Life, because it's very, very important that within the confines of our family, father, mother, children, nephews, nieces, grandparents, that we give God the glory within the family unit. We see that a lot around the Christmas time and around Thanksgiving, and sometimes Easter when people come together. There's a lot of love that's generated. So it's very, very important. And then, so now you're a minister. So what about the church? So the power in the local church was the 4th subtitle. What does it mean to go to church? Why do we go to church? How is the church defined? How do we give God the glory in the church? And then last but not least, we ended it up by saying, well, what about the great work that Helena is doing here on her wonderful TV program at the Writer's Haven? Rest, relaxation, restoration, educating, imparting knowledge by the different authors that are coming in. So even while we're at rest and relaxation, there's a way and a time to give God the glory. So those are the 5 areas that we touch on, because each of these 5 areas, relationships, the workplace, the family, the church, and while we're getting rest, it impacts everybody. No one is excluded. And so that's what we focused on, and it's been a blast.
Oh, wow.
Having a great time.
Absolutely. Yeah. Now, you touched on 5, but I know that there's 9. So how did the other 4 play into?
Well, here's the beauty of being an author, especially when you take the time to really study how the publishing industry works and how you and I can reach a wide audience, because as an author, you have an audience. You just need to know how to find them and how to resonate with them. I always tell people that our readers are our customer. And so what customer service do we provide to our readers? So what I've done is, number 1, we have the print version. Number 2, we have the Amazon Kindle version. Number 3, we have the ebook version. And soon, and very soon, we'll have the audio book version. Okay. And not only that, but we also have devotionals, and we have study guides, and we have workbooks. And you can take the exact same title, and you can have those many different variations or versions of the same book. So one book can become 6, literally. And so I have 8 in the marketplace, but I could have 24. Not every book is an ebook, but some are. Not every book is available on Amazon Kindle, but some are. And none are audiobook yet, but they will be by the end of 2019. So that's how you can take one book, authors, and expand your portfolio and generate multiple streams of income, but equally important, or more importantly, reach so many more people, as we have discussed. So if I sound a little excited about it, that's why, because it's very, very exciting.
Exciting news,
yeah,
definitely.
It really is. Yeah.
So nonfiction writing inspirational. And just the niche that you are writing to, that audience that you're writing to. Talk to us about how you approach the actual writing, any research that you have to do. What inspires it?
Well, that's a great question. So it's very important, again, to understand the industry and the craft in terms of what we do, and we're really blessed. So recognizing the differences between fiction and nonfiction. So typically your fiction and your novels, we're appealing to the senses, right? Smell and taste and hearing and touch and sight. But with the nonfiction, it's more of the who, what, when, where, and why. And so that's what, because we're looking to educate, impart knowledge, inform. And so the research and the study and the due diligence and the many, many hours of just scanning the internet and going to the card catalog and going to the library and to the bookstores to get information, all of that research goes into how we develop our content. And so I come up with a standard table of content, and I identify the names of the chapters and how they will flow, and then I start to do my research and I start to fill in, and within 6 to 9 months, we're done. Right?
The research part of it is
the research part of it. And then as I'm researching, I'm starting to fill in the blanks. The beautiful thing about writing a nonfiction book is you don't necessarily have to write it in order like you do with your fiction, because with your fiction, you need to capture your audience from page 1 to page 300, and you have to develop your characters and your plot and your setting. But with nonfiction, because it's more based on research and study, I can actually write chapter 5 and then go back to chapter 2 and then transition to chapter 8, and I'm kind of filling it in as I go along, and it works out beautifully.
Because the chapters don't necessarily flow into each other?
Well, they do, but again, because you're not really developing a story with characters and a plot and a setting, it's going to flow from chapter 1 all the way through, but it doesn't stop you from being able to fill in chapter 3 and then maybe go to chapter 8, and then because you're doing research on that particular chapter.
Right. Well, I guess my question is more so each chapter kind of stands on its own.
It does.
So if you were to look at it like a novel, for example, or fiction writing, the beginning, middle, end exist in that chapter.
Right.
And then you go on to the second chapter. So presumably then you could actually change the order of the chapters at any time if you wanted to. You may have said, okay, this is 1 through 13, but we're about to go to print, and I actually want to move 12 to 10 and 10 to, and it would be okay.
Absolutely,
is what you're saying.
Yep,
okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep, that happens. That's the gift of the writers, because we could be 95% done and go back and read it and like, ooh, yeah, let's make some changes here. Let's shift it around. That's the beauty of it all, right? But when it's all said and done, we're meeting the needs of our readers. Our readers communicate with us all the time. This is what we're looking for. This is what we need. This is what the market demands. Here's what the data and statistics are showing. Help us. Give us information. And so we respond to their need.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, when you're in the writing process, Kevin, how much of it is inspired? And what I mean by that, I'm sure all of it is inspired, but like, how do you know that you're getting a message that needs to flow out of you into your writing to hit the masses? How do you know that?
Just it's hard to explain in words, but it's just something that just hits you in the heart, right? You have this burden in your belly. It's like, I got to get this information out because it's so exciting. If I'm this excited about it, then I'm sure my readers will be super excited about it. The beauty about having a series of books is my readers are pretty familiar with the content that I write about. And so there's an anticipation with the next one coming out. And I'm listening to what they have to say and some of their feedback and some of their input. But if I find out something that's really, really new information that I didn't know, and I'm excited about it, it goes down on paper. It goes from intellect down to paper, and I'm excited to get it out there. And as a matter of fact, some parts of it are so exciting that I'll put that piece in the press release, or I'll put that piece in the pre-pub that goes out to give people a little teaser about what's to come. And then, so now I'm not the only one excited, but all the folks that are just waiting to purchase it are also excited as well. So it's kind of hard to explain in words, but you just know that you know.
Yeah.
That's the best way of saying it, right? You just know that you know.
And so I know that when you first started out writing, you didn't see it as a series.
Nope.
As you were writing the series, were there any other books that kind of percolated up that you thought, okay, you know what, I'm working on this now, but I may go to this book later because it's inspired? I mean, it's not necessarily within the series conforming to the series that you've set out, but maybe it's an extension of it.
Right. Interestingly enough, no. I mean, the vision was very clear. Once God said the series of books will be, the 5 subtitles were very, very clear to me, and I never diverted.
How did it come to you,
Never deviated.
How did it come to you?
Because of where I was in my life. So I knew the importance of all of us having a relationship with the Lord. So that was book number 1. Know God and do the will of God concerning your life. Made it very personal. Give God the glory. I was in the midst of the workplace for book number 2. I've seen how people lead. I've seen how people respond to good leadership and bad leadership. I've watched people who have a relationship with the Lord and those that don't. And all of these people are converging into the workplace every day. And some organizations are run well, and some organizations are just totally and completely dysfunctional. So how can I help these individuals that go to work every day to earn their living, to pay their mortgage, to pay their car, to get food on the table, clothes on their back? Something that we have to do, something that we should do. We should want to do that and help them. And so that's exactly how it was laid out. Being an author is an extension of who you are at the core. And so that's why you have some wonderful writers who just excel in mystery, in romance, self-help, cookbooks, and you name it. Because at the core, that's who they are. So at the core, this is who I am. I want people to understand what it means to give God the glory in those 5 key areas. Again, relationships, in the workplace, in the family, in the church, and then even while we're at rest and relaxation, because I'm a firm believer in that. Balance is very, very important in our lives. We've got to get rest, and we've got to restore, and we've got to relax.
It's critical.
But even when you're doing it, you're giving God the glory.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the business of writing. You're a publisher.
Yes.
The name of your publishing company is Writing for the Lord Ministries.
Yes.
Do you have any other authors under your brand? Okay.
Just moi.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Are you accepting any other? Not at the moment?
Nope.
Okay. So at the beginning, when you first started, with your first book, you didn't look to try to get signed by a publisher or look for an agent to go that route. You immediately knew that you wanted to publish it yourself.
Yeah, I didn't have any mentors. I didn't know any publishers. I didn't know anything about the publishing industry. I didn't have any other authors that I could ask questions about. I took everything that I knew was from my experience of writing articles. And at that time, I was a decent author. It's gotten much better. Like with anybody, you improve your craft as you go along. But no, I didn't know anybody. I just did it. I hired a graphic artist to come up with a nice cover based upon the vision that I articulated. I purchased my own ISBN. I went to the Library of Congress to purchase my barcode and my copyright, right? I learned how to do that. I took a couple of classes, and I hired someone to do the typesetting and the formatting, and off I went.
Okay.
That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Did you have someone edit?
Oh yeah,
Before
absolutely, absolutely. You
Okay.
can't edit your
It's
own work.
difficult.
Yeah. You
People
say
have tried to do it.
yeah, you said it's difficult. I'm on camera saying you can't because you're too close to it.
Yeah.
And you won't pick up the obvious things because your mind is saying of, but you've written off And you don't pick up on it.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
What would you say was the biggest challenge in publishing?
The biggest challenge is coming out of the gate without having name recognition. Literally, honestly, finding your audience and generating sales. It took a lot of work. It still takes a lot of work. Even all of my friends who are published under a traditional publisher, most of the marketing and promotion and publicity is on the author, right? So whether you are doing it yourself or whether you have signed a contract, that was the hardest part because it can get very expensive if you're not generating sales. So that was a challenge, and that was also a lessons learned. Now, fast forward to 2019, it's much, much, much less complicated now because of social media and because of the internet. Back then, we would have to take out a print article in the newspaper or in a magazine, which was very, very expensive and had very limited readership. Now, I mean, I can easily reach 250,000 people on a social media post. You just need to know how to understand the algorithms.
Right, the hashtags.
Once you understand how Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter, once you understand how it all works and what they're looking for and the right word and the timing, the day and the hour, once you do that, you can get a good reach. Now, if you were able to reach 500,000 people and only 10% bought, that's 5,000.
That's still good. Yeah.
So that's where we are. Big difference. Big difference. I just gave you a freebie.
Okay. So that was the biggest challenge.
That was the biggest challenge, and quite frankly, it still is the biggest challenge because we're in an environment now where publishing has become so popular because many of us, we can do it ourselves without having to go through a traditional publisher.
Yeah.
You know, you have close to 200,000 new books or reprints that hit the market every year. Yet a major bookstore like Barnes & Noble, they can only carry about 35,000 books in their inventory at any given time. So that's well over 70% of the books that are published every year will never make it into the bookstore because they just don't have the room.
Right.
So it's a very competitive industry.
Yeah, the market is definitely saturated.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Without a doubt.
Yep.
Okay. Well, tell me from a publisher's standpoint, in reviewing your work, and because I know you have some other projects that you're about to put out there for the masses. When you are looking at 2019 and the way that book sales are going and the markets that are hot versus others, and there's this message that you want, that you're definitely going to stay true to because this is your purpose, this is what God has planted in your life to be successful in. How do you engage? I mean, this, 2001, 2019, it's a lot of years in between, but our society has changed a lot as well.
3 words: watch, look, and listen, right? Watch the trends in terms of what's going on in our society right now. So, for example, let's have a quick conversation about even what's going on in the White House. Look at the transition between the 44th president and the 45th president. Just watch. Watch what's going on, the dynamics, the rhetoric, how people are responding, etc. Take a look at the books that are selling. Take a look at what topics are particularly interesting right now. So, for example, the topic that's the most interesting right now as it relates to the workplace is diversity and inclusion, beyond a shadow of a doubt, right? And then last but not least, listen. So, we have 2 ears and 1 mouth, and we need to teach ourselves to be better listeners. And as we listen to what people are saying, what messages are being conveyed, that kind of gives us a barometer when we watch, look, and listen in terms of the message that's resonating with the people at the present time. So don't necessarily change who you are or change your purpose or your vision, but you can modify, revise, and amend based upon the feedback that you're getting from the people.
Okay, and staying relevant without changing or compromising your message.
That's the right word, staying relevant. That's the right word. Yeah.
Who are you reading? What authors inspire your
Well,
writing?
I tell you what, I started out with a book called Understanding Your Potential by the late, great Dr. Miles Monroe, right?
Yes.
1993, little paperback book, love it. That really helped me, and it really, really inspired me. I'm a huge reader of leadership books because great leadership books teach us so many valuable lessons. First of all, it teaches us to be better leaders of ourselves so that we can be better leaders of others, right? So folks like John Maxwell, Zig Ziglar, here lately, a lot of the Simon Sinek books on leadership have been very, very instrumental in terms of helping me to grow as a person, as a minister, as a pastor, as a father, as a husband, as a friend, as an executive in the workplace. It's just helped me to grow tremendously, not to mention as an author as well. Yeah.
So what's next, Kevin?
Well, what's next is now that I am retired, I am going to continue to write. The Give God the Glory series will be transitioning into audio book format for this year. I want to tap
You said September 2019?
Well, I'm actually starting like immediately.
Okay.
Because I want to tap into that lucrative market and I want to be able to reach more people. We have 2 book projects for this year, 2019. I am also a contributing author in addition to being a principal author. So the beautiful thing about being a contributing author is I contribute a 1-chapter content to a book that will be coming out on the 19th of March.
Okay.
Writing is essential. So we're going to be sharing with a number of different authors on the essentials of writing, how to be a great writer, how to improve your craft, how to maximize book sales. I'll be a part of that project. And then in September of 2019, we'll kick off book 1 in the 5-book series on leadership. Actually, it's going to be on servant leadership because that's the space I'm in right now. I have a passion in my belly. Just like when I started with Give God the Glory 18 years ago, I have a new passion in my belly to make sure that we have sufficient training and coaching and mentoring and leadership principles and strategies for the current and next generation. So that's what I'll be focused on for the next 15 years.
Well, thank you very, very
Thank
much
you.
for joining me
Absolutely.
today and
Yes.
dropping those golden nuggets
All
that I'm
right.
sure our dream catchers are going to catch
Good,
and make
good.
sure that they make part of their writer's toolbox,
Excellent.
as I call it.
Excellent. All right.
Thank you, Kevin.
Absolutely.
Okay, dream catchers, thanks for joining us in the Haven. Remember to connect with me socially on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram at Author V. Helena. And you can stream us on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Sonos, SoundCloud, Alexa, and Spreaker at Writers Haven Show with V. Helena. I look forward to connecting with you, and until next time, catch fire on purpose.
Here we go. We're gonna go out there in the rain. You're gonna get wet. All right, here we go. Okay, quick. Oh yeah, yes. So much fun. Mwah. Yeah, Dad. We're getting so wet. Oh,